Welcome to the Women at the Top podcast interview series. My name is Regina Barr, and I'm the founder of the Women at the Top Network, and I will be your host today. For those of you who don't know us, we are a community of like-minded women who share the what, mission, and vision. And our goal, simply put, is to empower aspiring women to lead. And we do that in a couple of ways, by providing training, information, and connections. Joining me today is Cathy Paper. And before we get started, I'd like to tell you just a little bit about her. Cathy is the founder of RockPaperStar, a boutique consulting firm that specializes in coaching, marketing, and promotion for individuals, business owners, or executives by offering creative ideas to improve process and performance. Cathy has coached executives and managers at Best Buy, Paramount Pictures, John Deere, and Apple, as well as many Minnesota-based privately held companies and service firms. Cathy earned her BA at Williams College and holds a master's degree in organization development from the University of St. Thomas. She's a national speaker, e-speaker, a columnist for the American City Business Journals, a Forbes Council coach, and she's a winner of the Minnesota Business Magazine's Real Power 50 and the National Association of Women Business Owners Women on the Way Award, which is given to a woman-owned business owner who has demonstrated ahead of the curve achievement, not only for herself, but her company as well. On that note, welcome, Cathy.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Good to be here with you. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in and get us started today. And for anyone that's been with me on these podcasts in the past, they know that I love to hear the backstory of our guests. So I have to ask, I've known you for some time and I've never asked for the backstory, but tell us about the name of your company, RockPaperStar. What's the story behind that?
Well, with a last name like Paper, you get asked a lot, how do you spell it? And it used to always be, just like you write on. And when thinking about my company, one of the things that I do so often is help people grow and develop, through coaching and training and turn them into rock stars. So rather than rock, paper, scissors, we decided let's call it rock, paper, star because we turn everyone into stars. And I'm a competitive person and, playing the game. So, rock, paper, scissors, you can now do rock, paper, star. So.
Awesome. So you even gave a creative new take on an old trusted game.
Exactly.
I love it.
Exactly.
So Cathy, I've known you for a while and you are a networking expert, a guru, if you will. And I know you've done lots of research in this area. So tell us a little bit about what actually got you interested in networking.
Well, if I think back to when I first started my business after I left Best Buy, the piece of networking that happens to so many people is we kind of network thinking, okay, I got to generate business. I've got to be in all these places. And there's kind of a franticness to it. And yet, when you really look at networking, it's about building relationships and growing your community for the longer term. And as I kept on building my business and being exhausted from going to all these events, I realized, you know what, I'm trying too hard or I'm trying in the wrong ways. And, throughout the 15 years of running a business, I see a lot of people having that same sort of moment of either they don't like to network or they network so much that they're not very sincere about the connections that they're making or what they're doing with people. And this could be, Regina, either inside of an organization or, if you're running your own business and building relationships is what networking really is. It's how can we all win? How can we have the right people around us and be strategic about it without being disingenuous?
Yeah, I think you're making some great points there because, networking for lack of a better term is a necessary evil, right? It's something that we need to do. Some of us want to do it and some of us do it because we have to. And I think you're spot on when you're saying that if people are doing it and they're disingenuous, it's going to backfire on them. So I really appreciate you calling that out.
Yeah. And I would tell you this too, is I did a survey of it because again, I didn't want to go solely on my own intuition or the experiences that I was hearing from some of my friends. Whether they were in the companies that we were providing training for, and people would talk about, well, I don't really want to meet with my boss, but I kind of want to get to the next level, or a lot of hesitation about building relationships. As I decided to do a survey to ask the questions, what are people really thinking? So we surveyed 600 people and found out that even the word networking, 72% of the people do not like the word. They have a reaction. And I asked them, like, put why, what are those words you would associate with it? And it ranged from, slimy, sales oriented, brown noser, just it all had such negative connotations. Yet when you got down to where do they feel like relationships matter, if you're one-on-one with people, then people were more comfortable. If you were introduced by a friend, then people are more comfortable. Then it doesn't feel so much like networking. It feels like, oh, a friend connected us and we're going to do business together now. Or
in a perfect world, that would be how all of them happened. And
well,
unfortunately, I don't live in that world, but yes, and I could appreciate why you got some of that kind of feedback and reaction, because for the most part, when you're selling yourself, it just never feels comfortable.
right. And you and I have spoken about this or talked about it. It's sort of that, where's your social capital? What are you known for? And there's that finding that balance of you're a giver so that you build those rapport with people. But
Totally agree. And I like to come from a place of abundance. You have to give before you receive. I don't know where or how I started having that philosophy when I approached networking, and I have found that that's worked very well for me, and probably that's just how I'm hardwired. I like to help people, and that makes it easy for me. So I appreciate those insights that you're sharing with us today. So let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges people face. Now, your role allows you to share your networking savvy and marketing skills to help leaders not only reach their goals, but also their teams and organizations as well. So with the folks that you've worked with, what would you say is the biggest networking challenge that leaders and their teams face?
the biggest challenge is time. Is people don't feel like they have the time to network or to make those meaningful connections or to be intentional about who they're meeting with. So I like to have people think about building a top 25 of who are those people that are really critical in your network and why. So
Yeah.
again, we all have the same amount of time each day. And, how do you use that? So the challenge is people are like, well, how do I do this? I'm already so busy. Well, then let's take a look at who are you spending time with right now?
Mhm.
Where are you attending? Why does it feel, everything starts to feel frantic for people at some point. So then they say, oh, I don't have time to network, or I don't have time to meet with my mentor, or I don't have time to meet with somebody that's in a position that I would like to talk to. Well, that's called being strategic with your time. So that challenge could come down to saying, okay, how about once a week, you're going to spend a half hour having a Zoom call or coffee now, that we can be in person, having that time with people to meet with somebody new or somebody that's on your list that's in your top 25 that you haven't talked to in a year, so that you're keeping those relationships, the most critical relationships you're nurturing on a regular basis.
Yeah, it's the old time. I
Yep.
couldn't agree with you more that you have to be strategic and in your networking and how you're using your time. So I'm glad that you don't take that as an excuse and that you kind of help your clients reevaluate that, because the key about a network, and I'm sure you would agree, is the time to build it is when you don't need it, because
Yes.
when you need it, it's very difficult to build it. It's, again, I think you mentioned earlier, you're investing for the long term. This is not a short term type of relationship that we're talking about.
Yep. No, it's and it's being being smart about that I'm in this for the long haul,
Mm-hmm.
and being clear.
Yes, I think that's really key. And you have been this in the long haul, and you've personally had the opportunity to work with lots of different clients, on a variety of issues. So when you think back over your career and your networking, what's something you learned from someone along the way that has stuck with you all of these years?
About networking, or learn something just in
Just
general?
in general, that's helped you to be successful uh, in your career, in your business, or in your networking, if it applies
Yeah,
to networking.
I think it comes down to both things. The tip was to take notes, to really be a good listener. And I always thought I was a pretty good listener. But I didn't realize how important it is to have a system of kind of capturing all that information, so that um, people's spouses' names, or what their priorities are, or what their favorite cups of coffee is, or some of those things that are both personal and professional, but just a way to show that you are a good listener and you're building that relationship. I'm a good connector, but I didn't really write things down so much. I just thought, oh, I'll remember. And the bigger your network gets, the more challenging it is to remember things, but you want to be sincere about it. And I do care about people when I'm in the moment, but just learning that skill of, I might need to write some things down so that, I can know that, you have a dog,
Mm-hmm.
and, being able to make that connection. And again, I'm genuine because I like people and I want to get to know them, but just having that habit of, okay, am I going to write the things down so that I remember, the woman that I just met, a few hours ago, she told me, what her favorite thing is at Midtown Global Market. Am I going to remember that? And I, I wouldn't remember that a year from now, but if I
Right.
write it down in where I keep track of things, then I'm going to be more successful with my relationships.
Yeah, totally agree. And for those who are watching or listening today, that's a first tip there. Write it down. Literally, write it down. I love it. Take notes.
Take
Now,
note.
we've had a few years of working and networking remotely using Zoom, and some of us are probably a little zoomed out, but I think Zoom is here to stay. So I think it's important to talk a little bit about how do you network differently on and off the screen?
Okay, so when the pandemic started, and I had already done a few virtual things because LinkedIn was starting to kind of creep up, and I like TikTok, and I like social media pieces. So there was a little bit of that connecting online. I was watching my kids, like, how do they make friends online? Like, how do they do that? I'm more of an in-person kind of person. One of the things with networking on and off the screen is knowing how you like to make connections. So that if you're on a Zoom call and maybe you aren't the kind of person that would write something in the chat, challenge yourself to speak up in the chat. Or if you're on a networking, again, there are now networking events where you're on the screen, in Zoom, and so many people don't have their camera on. And we had a big discussion about this last night in a workshop I was leading, where people said, well, do I have to turn the camera on? And I said, I recommend it because you're showing engagement. But if you don't have your camera on, at least have then a headshot of you somewhere, so that people aren't just looking at either your name in that Zoom type or your phone number, but they get to see actually what you look like, because we are at the end of the day still human beings wanting to connect. So I would say a couple of tips are the photo, use the chat, don't overuse the chat, because the people that are always talking in the chat, I think that's distracting. I also do a following up with people after the Zoom call where I'll reach out to them then on LinkedIn. So if somebody says something interesting in a networking forum, or they say something in the chat and I'm not connected to them, I'll go reach out and say, hey, I really enjoyed what you said in that call. Could we get to know each other, connect here? Or again, if you're looking for a deeper connection, take the initiative with people.
I think all of those are great advice, Cathy, especially the follow-up, because I think that's where the gold is in the networking, whether you're in person or online. So if those of you who are listening or watching today, that's another thing, write that down, do the follow-up.
Do the
So
follow-up.
I want to tap back into something you mentioned or alluded to a little earlier, and we are starting to meet in person again, and we're seeing lots more opportunities to meet and network with others. And like yourself, I'm a people person, so I'm really happy about that. You talked about the time issue. So how do you determine what high value networking activities to participate in each day? Because we have so many opportunities.
Yeah. So I actually wrestle with that probably every year of where am I going to put my time? And one of the things that I did is I reached out to other people to find out how do they do it? What is it they do? So one of my sort of professional contacts, she looks at her list of associations and organizations every year and determines what can she really participate in. So making a plan to say, I can be in 3 this year, and I'm going to be engaged in them, meaning I'm going to show up at their events. I'm going to be an active participant, going to be in there. And I think, Regina, one of the pieces that happens is people say, oh, I want to be a networker, and they join 7 things and they don't do any of them well. And for anybody that's, taken classes in college, there's a big difference between taking 4 classes and 5 classes, or 5 classes and 6 classes, whatever the credits are. So you want to be thoughtful of what can I handle in addition to my current workload that is a priority. So I think somewhere between 2 and 3 things, or looking, if you want to get really tactical, to say, here's how many hours I could spend per week networking, so that I know I can only have, 2 coffees a week, 1 lunch, 1 evening event, one of those things. And then I start making some rules and requirements for myself, because otherwise the networking sort of snowball. You're networking, but you're not purposeful. You're not in control of it. You're spending a lot of time scheduling. Scheduling is one of my least favorite things to do. So I've had to get really clear of, these are the days that I'm going to do the networking, and and here's why. And then you can reevaluate. So like, I'm just picking, these are the 2 or 3 organizations that I'm a part of, and then I'll leave something as kind of a wild card, so that when a friend calls me, and here's another networking tip, is go to events with someone. You'll have way more fun. You'll both set a goal together. You'll go to one. So I'm going to something later tonight where we're going together, because both of us are kind of lukewarm on, are we really dying to go? But we know if we go together, we're going to have a much better time. We're going to be more productive in the event. We're going to be able to introduce each other at certain places. It helps. It helps your comfort level.
Completely agree. It's always more fun if you've got a partner in crime, so to speak. So I agree with you on that. Now, I had a recent networking event that was in person, and we had a great turnout. And one of the things that we talked about were our networking goals for this year. And it was interesting to me because so many of the women, it was a women's group, said that they're looking forward to reconnecting with their network. So what's your go-to move for staying in touch with people no matter what's going on in the world?
I'm a big phone person. And my go-to reconnect is I call them, and I just say, I make time in my schedule for the phone calls. So at the beginning of the week, I'll make a list of, these are the 10 people that I want to talk to that I haven't connected with in a while. Or I will also find, people that are, if on LinkedIn, a lot of these social media tools suggest things for you. I'll see somebody and I'm like, I have not talked to that person for a long time. I need to call them. And then I also am a forwarder of articles or ideas. So I just saw somebody's event, somebody that we have a mutual acquaintance is speaking at this event. And I sent it to the gentleman and said, hey, our friend is speaking at this. That's so cool. Did you know that? We should catch up when she's done speaking. So a little bit of that like cheerleader tendency or connective tendency is I will reach out that way. So I'm always on the scan for who could I connect to this piece of information. My mom had a thing called the paper clipping service, and she had a little Post-it note that said paper clipping service, and she would send everybody articles from the newspaper and mail it to them. And,
that's awesome.
And so I take it as doing it that way.
So you've kind of updated that and modernized it. I love it. I love when we hear stories about how, our moms have influenced us. I think I have Mother's Day on the mind or something like that. So anyway, lots of our viewers and listeners work in very large organizations. And I think it's important for people to network. So what are some of the do's and don'ts for growing your network in a large company?
So again, I worked at Best Buy for 7 years. And when you're in a big company, the challenge is you're so busy doing the work that you forget to build your network inside the organization or outside the organization. And I really recommend being intentional with your network of saying, you know what, I want to know people in different departments. I want to have some relationships with people of all levels inside the organization. You want to be a part of an association or volunteering or something to give you a network outside of the company that you work for. And again, when people are busy, networking can be the first thing that you stop doing. Mm-hmm. So think about it as I want to maintain those 25 to 50 relationships, striving for 100, but start with that 25 and, thinking who could I meet up with? So again, a big company, I think people will always have time for you. You're not asking for an hour. You're saying, hey, could we do a 15-minute checkup? Or wondering if we could meet for a coffee sometime, or could I drive you to the airport? That's what somebody years ago taught me to do. And I've offered to people, hey, could I drive you to the airport? Then you get time to talk to them. We all like Uber, but if you could ride with somebody to the airport, if you ever need a ride, let me know. So that's something I say, if you ever need a ride, let me know. I'd be glad to drive you.
That's awesome. And, what a great way to catch up and, provide someone with a service, if you will, right? Where they can ride with someone that they know, like, and trust, or want to get to know better. And so, I think we're all busy doing, but that networking is what's going to help us build and grow our careers or expand or get to the next level. So I appreciate that you are strongly encouraging people to network at all levels in the organization.
Yep.
So we've appreciate all of your great advice today. I can hardly believe it, but we are winding down on our time together. So I always like to close by asking our author or interview subject, what's one piece of advice about networking that you would offer to our viewers and listeners today? If you could only give them one piece of advice, what would it be?
I would say be gracious. So
I love that.
Be gracious, meaning, be nice to the people that ask for your time and be respectful of the people that give you their time, and everybody will win.
That's wonderful. So on that note, remember to be gracious. And that does conclude our time with Cathy Paper. And just a reminder that you can learn more about Cathy at www.RockPaperStar.com. And again, Cathy, thanks so much for being here with us today. So appreciate it. And please don't forget to visit reginabarr.com, where you can learn more about our upcoming events and programs on the events page. And with that, I just want to say thanks everyone for joining us, and have a great day.